And Rock, unfortunately, the injury bug is what we have to start our show with because it has bitten the Orioles bullpen early in camp. I know we're a ways away from this team breaking camp and coming north, but right now we're looking at Dylan Tate potentially missing the entire month of April, and he certainly won't pitch for Team USA in the World Baseball Classic while he rehabs from injury.
A surprise. We didn't know about any of this other than he wasn't on the WBC roster. The injury bug bit before they even got to Florida. Apparently, he sustained a strain of the right, and it was described by Mike Elias as forearm flexor forearm. This was back in November. And it's interesting because we interviewed him that last stop of the caravan, the Birdland Caravan in Odenton, asked him about the WBC, talked about, how exciting it's going to be, ramping up early, preparing and everything else in the season. And there was no word at all about him possibly missing the entire month of April, which is why I said it was possible. He's definitely going on the IL. There's no doubt about that. And no one else talked about it until that first day of camp. So in the first workout, and Elias was kind of giving the state of the camp and mentioned that. And it was a surprise and it's a big loss because even if it's just for a month, and I say just, he is a high leverage back end bullpen guy coming off a career year. So they're counting on him a lot. And now, luckily, they've got depth. And we wondered how they were going to come up with 8 relievers, just like we're wondering about 5 starters. But to lose a guy who's been that valuable, carrying such a heavy workload, there's definitely an impact there. And at first we thought, well, you show up in camp with his injury, maybe 15 days and he's ready. But he could, as I said, miss the entire month of April. They're hoping at least to get him back after that, and we'll see what happens.
One more guy in that bullpen that the Orioles will be relying heavily upon and who is experiencing a slow start to spring is Felix Bautista. He's working on strengthening that shoulder, and he's rehabbing the knee. That was an injury that ended his season a little bit early last year.
Yeah, this is a surprise, and it's kind of weird because it's not an injury or a new injury that he's rehabbing. It's literally just the follow-up, and he's been working on it all winter to rehab the knee, the left knee. And also, that right shoulder, he had the arm fatigue, as it was described, and he wasn't available down the stretch, and then they tried it again, then the knee injury. So he's on a program to strengthen it. So the question here is whether he can get enough games and enough innings under his belt to be ready for opening day. So he's kind of marked as questionable right now. We haven't had a chance to talk to him today. We were waiting on Brandon Quiones to translate for us. Felix was at his locker. Then he went to work out, and Brandon walked into the clubhouse, and Felix was gone. And we're like, let's try this again tomorrow. So I have a funny feeling he's going to say he's fine and will be ready. He did throw another bullpen today. He's throwing off a mound. But again, they're going to withhold him early on from Grapefruit League games. And then it is just a question of, can he get enough innings to be ready? If not, at least he would look like a 15-day guy as opposed to missing significant time. So it just depends when they can get him ready. But again, who closes if it isn't him? And it's not Dylan Tate. So that's kind of a big 1-2 punch as far as bad news.
Yeah, and DL Hall was used as a reliever last year. It sounds like the plan for him this spring is to make sure he is a starter, at least to start the season. But he had a little bit of injury concern that he seemed to clear up today. Is that right? Yeah,
again, another surprise. He had some discomfort in his lower right lumbar. That's a back to you and me, I'm pretty sure. So he said, some mild discomfort for a couple weeks. He said nothing too crazy. And he said he's fine now. He's throwing. So he certainly made it sound like he would expect to be ready. But he's just in the pile of guys here that are being held back and slow played a little bit. That seems to be the less serious of the 3. Meanwhile, we don't know whether he's breaking camp with the team as a starter in the bullpen where spots seem to be opening up, or whether they just want to keep him as a starter and he actually goes down to AAA. And Elias said, there's different theories on when you want to go ahead and take a young starter and move him in the bullpen to get his feet wet, and when you don't want to risk damaging the development and stunning the growth. And, he's made his debut with the start in Tropicana Field, and the plan all along was go down to AAA right after it, come back, you're in the bullpen down the stretch to help us hopefully in the playoff push, but also to get that experience, to get acclimated in the majors. And he was really good those last 8 appearances, 1 run, 11 strikeouts, and 8 2/3. So do you put him back in the bullpen for the short term, at least looking at 2023? Or do you say, look, forget all that. We think he's a starter. We want him in camp as a starter, and we're going to keep him in that role, whether it's here or in AAA. The key here is that it looks like apparently he'll be pitching one way or the other without having to go on the IL, but even that isn't guaranteed. But certainly was promising news today when he talked with us.
And going from lefty to lefty real quickly, Nick Vespi, we thought a couple months ago there was no chance he was going to be able to recover from his sports hernia surgery in time for opening day, but now it sounds like it's a possibility that he could be fully recovered and ready to make this team.
Yeah, it was sports hernia surgery. Is that different than regular hernia surgery, Dr. Mancano? I do not know. But he expressed a lot of confidence he'd be ready opening day, and he's throwing during the caravan. Elias was a little more cautious, said it's kind of like TBD whether he will be ready. They certainly could use him, especially if Hall isn't in the bullpen, and Cionel Perez might be, closing or helping to close. If Bautista isn't on the opening day roster, you need that other lefty, that door could open for Vespi. So we'll see when he gets in games and how he's feeling, but he expressed a lot of confidence he'd be ready. Like I said, Elias was like, yes, it's a possibility. He wouldn't go any further than that.
Well, the important thing is, Rock, you showed up to spring training in Sarasota in the best shape of your life, and so you will be ready for this 6-week stretch before we get to opening day. But, Rock, thanks so much for hopping on the Orioles spring training report.
Thanks, guys. Good to see you.